Welcome to another episode of Chax Chat. Join Chad Chelius and me, Dax Castro, where each week we wax poetic about document accessibility topics, tips, and the struggle of remediation and compliance. So sit back, grab your favorite mug of whatever, and let's get started.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Chax Chat podcast. My name is Chad Chelius. I'm an Adobe certified instructor and one of the accessibility wizards here at Chax Training and Consulting.
And my name is Dax Castro. I am also another one of the accessibility wizards at Chax Training Consulting. And Chad and I are both certified as accessible document specialists. And as you start out this new year, if you're looking for a goal, getting your CPAC or ADS or WAS, for those of you who might follow us that are in the web accessibility specialist field, is a great thing to do. So head on over to accessibilityassociation.org and click on the certifications to get more information about that. So good stuff.
Yeah. I know that's on my list for this year. I want to get my CPAC, right? I want to,
yeah,
I know it's, for us, I mean, as document specialists, right? I mean, the ADS was the important one for us, but I think it'd just be good overall knowledge to have the CPAC. I just think it'd be a useful thing to have.
Well, what's interesting, Chad, is that you and I both need to take the ADS. Our subscription, it's a 3-year term, and we have not recertified for ADS. So okay. I was just noticing just the other day, I'm like, I was pulling up my certifications to submit for an RFP. And I was like, wow, this is from, it's been more than 3 years. So we've got to go back and take that certification, even though you and I helped write the questions for the test. Yeah. So all good stuff though. I think if you are interested in taking that test, you do have to have about a year or so of experience, and you have to submit proof that you actually are not just a test junkie taking the test, just taking the test to take the test, and that you actually do this as part of your job. And in fact, I think there's a little bit of pushback from some people because they've tried to apply to take the test and they've been told, no, go get some more experience. So. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, not for that reason, but I, when people ask me for my advice, they're like, what's the best way to study, for the exam? I know, like when we take the Adobe exams, Dax, they always ask you, how did you prepare for the exam? And I'm like, I didn't.
I showed up to work.
I use it every day, and so if I'm not able to pass this exam, then I probably don't deserve to pass it. But I think it's just a good idea to just have real world experience under your belt. And I think that alone is going to do you really well to help you pass the exam and get your certification.
Yeah, absolutely. So awesome. Well, today, Chad, I wanted to talk about tools and are they worth it? Right? There are a lot of tools that, matter of fact, most tools for accessibility have a fee attached to them, right? It is a very unique area of expertise. And so to develop a specialized set of tools is niche, and that costs money to develop. And so most people who start out in the accessibility field, their first couple of questions after their first week or two is, okay, what are the free tools that I need to get? And I'm like, NVDA?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. Let's go through the free tool stacks.
Yeah,
right.
Let's do that.
So you had mentioned, what'd you say? NVDA.
NVDA. Yep. So NVDA is the first one, because if you're not testing I'll just tell you right now, if you're not testing your document with a screen reader and you're in charge of making sure it's accessible, you're not doing your job. It's just not possible to understand if the document is accessible without listening using assistive technology, because you and I know we can pass a checker all day long and there's still going to be barriers in your document. Now, passing the checker is going to get you farther down the road. Your document might be 70 or 80% accessible, but if you've got complex tables and you don't have scope and span set, and you might pass a checker just fine, but it's going to be a mess of an experience for someone using assistive technology, right?
Well, and especially for complex tables, Dax, right? Because technically, as long as you have scope and span set in your table, it's going to pass, right?
Right.
Like that kind of satisfies the requirement of having heading cells with scope. And it says, okay, we're good to go. But with complex tables, when I say complex tables, I mean like when you merge a cell all the way across a table midway down, and you want that to behave as like a heading for data further down in the table, right?
Sure.
Like that's an example of a complex table. And so the table would pass if you have scope assigned to your top header cells, but that subhead in the table will not be conveyed to the user. They will not understand. I mean, they'll be able to read the cell, and I don't know, Dax, like maybe they'll figure it out, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe as they're perusing through, they'll kind of, understand, but that's a big if, right? And so
well, I'll take it a step further. If you have a table that has a first row, so your first row is always by default, whether you mark scope or not, will always be read as a header by NVDA and JAWS. It won't pass a checker, but it will read okay. But you can, if you have a first column that is a row header, meaning that first column describes the things to the right of it, and you don't set that as a header cell, assistive technology won't be able to read it. The checker doesn't know that you meant that to be a header cell. And so You'll just hear maybe the number 2, 3, 5, 7, and not really understand that it is region 1, 15, region 3, 26, that kind of thing. So, even in simple tables, if you have more than a column header, you need to double check your tables because it's possible they won't read correctly.
That's a really good point, Dax. And that's actually a simpler example than the one I was given, right? Because you're right. I mean, that's even easier to kind of understand. So either one of those situations, the information will not be conveyed appropriately. But the other helpful thing about using a screen reader to read a table is if your table contains a lot of numbers.
Sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people use assistive technology. They kind of get used to how it's read. But when you're reading it, a lot of times it'll say 2004, column 3, 2,756, right? And like, you know what I mean? Like when you and I are listening to it, I'll speak for myself. Like sometimes when I'm listening to that, I'm like, holy moly, like I'm lost, right? I mean, there's so many numbers happening and it could get really confusing. And screen readers help you. So like what you may do is adjust your content so that the content is voiced a little bit differently. Like rather than it just reading a number, you say, add feet to the end or add yards to the end, to give it context. You know what I mean? And I think that helps to segregate that content. Yeah.
You're bringing up a really good point. And I just had this in a class last week on accessible table design. And in the class, we were talking about whether or not it was appropriate to add the common denominator in the column header. So let's say it was percent in this column. And so they were asking, should the percent be at the top of the column in the header? Like it says, passing percent, right? Or should it say passing score and then percent next to each of the numbers in the cells? And I said, well, it depends on how much of an easy read you want it to be. Both are correct. Neither one of them is wrong. You just need to be consistent within your tables in your document so that you always do it one way or the other. But I would prefer, from a cognitive standpoint, that the percent is read along with the number. So I hear 26%, not because remember, assistive technology will not keep reading the column header that you're in. So Agreed. If it's percent passing or passing percent, you're only going to hear that once when you move into the column. And as you move down, you're just going to hear 12, 15, 18, 32, because it assumes you remember you're in the percent column. But if you put that percent in the cell with the number, you're going to hear 12%, 15%, 32%. And that's a much easier or much more cognitively informative user experience, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. You know, it just makes it very clear, right? You know, like I said, when I'm listening to a table that's just a bunch of numbers, I'm like, wow. But if you can add those little, I don't know, do we call them disruptors? I don't want to use that term, but you know what I mean? Like it just kind of separates the content, you know. What did you call it?
A suffix. So you have prefix or suffix, sure. Right? So a suffix, if it's 22 feet, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, Chad, in the session, we had a table that in each of the different columns, it was a property. It was an area of study, but every row was a different measurement. Wind speed, rain, feet. Some of them were inches, some of them were feet, some of them were miles per second. But in the column, it was just the number. So if you were going down, you were just hearing 12, 6, or 2, 2, 2, 2. And each one of those 2 was 2 feet, 2 inches per second. You know, it was all different units. And so it was really confusing to have all those different things because of how they formatted the table so that the denominator was in the row itself. It was
well, and I'm curious for like the feet and inches, did they use the foot mark? Or did they put just FT?
So in the row header, it just said rain in inches. It said rain, and then in parentheses in inches, and then the row below it was measurable biological hazard, and then that was in ounces or milligrams or milliliters. So the units were all in those the row headers. But it was just numbers. And you'd look at the table just straight on, just look at the data part, and it was 2, 2, 2, 2. And it didn't make as much of an impact until you looked at what it was referring to. And I thought that was a very interesting way to put together a table.
And didn't you tell me in JAWS, you can force it to read the header cells for the data cell?
Yeah, there's Control-Alt, the number pad 5, and that will read all associated header cells with a current cell.
Which I think is a great feature. I mean,
agreed.
That's really helpful.
Yep.
Okay. So let's get back to talking about our tools, right? We got a little segue there. Sorry, guys. So the free tools, you mentioned NVDA.
Right.
I would add to that the color contrast validator.
That is TPGI's color contrast validator, right?
Yep.
I will see your color contrast validator and raise you a WebAIM color contrast analyzer. So WebAIM's, the difference between the two, for those of you may not know, TPGI's color contrast validator, which is the one I use. I like it. It's an executable. It's a .exe file. And maybe your IT department doesn't like, you don't have to install anything, but it's an executable, right? WebAIM's color contrast analyzer is a web browser. And so where I might not want WebAIMs is if I've only got one screen. It's really hard to open that up and make room. If you're on a laptop, it's they need a more compact version of it. But yeah, so either executable or web browser based, those are two great tools. For color blindness, I use the Microsoft Color Simulations, right? That's a really great tool.
On the Mac side, I would say Sim Daltonism.
Yep.
I would say Callus PDF Go HTML.
Yeah, and that's CALLAS.
Yep.
And it's callussoftware.com. You can go there and get that tool. But that's a great one. And that PDF Go HTML, what it is, it's actually 5 or 6 different things, but the default experience is an HTML rendering of your PDF document, and it color codes everything so you can easily see what's a heading, which images have alt text, and the most important thing I use it for is table structure, because it draws your table in a very visual way. And when there's a hole or a span missing or something going wrong, you absolutely see it because it doesn't make that perfect rectangle or square. Yeah. There's a big gap, right?
Yep. And furthermore, in a table, what I love about PDF Go HTML is like when you hover over a table header, it highlights in blue all the cells that are related to that header cell.
Yes, if you have scope and span set, you have to have those set.
Or cell IDs.
Yes, or cell IDs.
Either one of those. Yeah.
And just while we're on that topic, the pack checker also has an HTML renderer. Although I don't like it as much as I like Callus's, because it adds too much code, boxes and borders. It's a little visually distracting, but both are great. So from a checker standpoint, right, there is the pack checker, and we're at pack 2025? 26. So pack 2026. And then there's an online version of the pack checker because the desktop version is PC only, right?
Yep.
And so there's a Mac. Well, there's an all version. What do you call it? An online version. Yeah, an online version that doesn't care what operating system you're using, except it's got a page limit. You have to upload the document, and it doesn't give you all the errors. Like it just shows you that it has errors, but you can't dive into where that error is on the page, which I think is a big miss.
Yeah, it's not super helpful. You can't see the results, where like in the pack checker, you say view results, and you could double click on each error and see exactly where that error is. But the online version doesn't let you. Now, I have it on good accord that Axis 4 is actually working on a Mac version of the pack checker. Now, you and I have been hearing that for years, Dax, but they recently brought it up in a webinar that I attended, and apparently they are in fact working on the Mac version now. So,
okay. Well, that's a good thing to know.
It'll be good for the Mac users out there for sure.
The Acrobat checker. Let's talk about that. So the Acrobat checker is your baseline, right? It is the bare minimum of accessibility. It should not, if you're listening to this and you're new to accessibility, the Acrobat checker does not validate that your document is accessible, period. It has just a series of some pass fails that it gets you kind of the big bucket items that you're handling. Although I will say there is a new recent addition to the Acrobat checker that's kind of makes me upset. It's called associated with content. The pack checker does not check for this anymore. Well, at all. But Acrobat says, hey, if I've got a folder, a tag, and the tag doesn't have content in it, I can't assign actual text or alt text to it. And the reason this makes a difference is often we might assign alt text to a TD, a table data cell, or to an empty tag to try to add notes or more instructions for the screen reader user. And it used to be our go-to way to kind of inject instructions for the end user. And now you can't do that. It says, hey, you've got an object with no content inside it. You've got a tag with no content. You can't have that. And while that may be technically correct, it removes a tool from my cadre.
Yeah.
So I'm not a fan. So.
Well, I don't know how they determine what the Acrobat checker looks for. You know what I mean? Like it seems to be somewhat random in nature, right? I mean, the other thing that the Acrobat will balk about is if you use a label tag anywhere but in a list.
You just have to uncheck the one little checkbox in the checker.
But by default, it'll flag it, right? It'll flag it as a problem. And as Dax is pointing out, you can, to some degree, you could control what the Acrobat checker checks for. And there's a little area you could go in and say, I forget what the option is, Dax, but like, don't look for labels only in a list or something like that.
Yeah, it's very close to that. I think it just says that the rule, I think, says LBL tags must be contained inside a list item, and you just uncheck that, and it will let you get by. But I did find out. Here's a little thing about tricking the pack check, the Acrobat checker, that if your table simply has a T head folder, because when you export from InDesign and you say first row, or this says a row header, it creates a T head, right? Even if you have no scope or no spans or no anything assigned and it's all TDs, the very fact that there's a T head there makes it pass a checker. So you can have a table full of nothing but TDs. And if their TDs are inside a T head tag, it will pass. Promise.
But does that actually work?
It doesn't do anything. It just passes the checker.
But if you have a T head with TDs in it, it doesn't make it a header cell. It doesn't make it behave like a header cell.
Agreed. But the Acrobat checker thinks it's passing because it's looking for that. It's like saying, hey, look, if you have a T head, then you must have THs inside and they must have.
But it doesn't look for them. It doesn't actually look for them.
It doesn't go that far. No. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's kind of, Acrobat, go fix that.
The things that make us stay up at night, right?
Yes. I'm struggling to think of other free tools, but I will say that Keith Gilbert, when we're talking about accessibility tools, right? Keith Gilbert has created a whole slew of accessibility scripts for InDesign, right? I mean, we're not just talking about Acrobat here. So what are other free tools that we can use? And I'm struggling for his website right now. It's gilbertconsulting.com. Yes. /scripts, right? Yep. And if you go there, there's a whole series of ones that you've helped him. You've worked with him and given him ideas, and he's come up with a bunch of 44 scripts. Now, not all 44 have to deal with accessibility, but yeah, there's quite a few.
Yeah, the one that's fantastic is create articles from layers. Right. Yep. Really, I use it every document now because it cuts my time in half. Right. It's just amazing. And then we have I think it's called like create accessibility or something like that, where it tries to like evaluate the style names you've used and then automatically maps it to tags for you.
Okay. There's the hide and show articles panel content. Yes. That's a great one.
Well, I'm currently working on one with him that I asked him for. I want a script that will highlight the next object in the articles panel.
Okay.
And my idea here is that I could then assign a keyboard shortcut to that script. And with a keyboard shortcut, just go to the next thing in the articles panel. And it would just make it really easy for you to evaluate the content that you have in your articles panel.
Okay, that makes sense. I can totally see that being a thing. He's got another one called Check Document Accessibility. And this one says check and fix a document accessibility for specific prompts for document title, mapping paragraphs. I think this is what you were talking about. Mapping paragraphs, checking images for alt text, and a few more things. But speaking of which, I had an idea for a script. I want a script that assigns the object export options for all objects that are in the links panel to the accessibility alt text, so that if I'm, as a organization, we've decided we're going to embed the metadata of alt text into each of my images, I don't want to then dump it into InDesign and then have to go in and set the object export options property for each one of those images as I bring them in. I just want to be able to run a script and set all of them that way, right? And I know you can create an object style that would allow you to automatically apply that. So you'd paste your image in or drop it in, and then you just hit, set up a shortcut key, Control-3 or Control-Alt-3 or whatever, and assign that object style. But that's an extra keystroke every single time I put something in. Go ahead.
But you could also do a find change.
Okay. So you'd have to find how do you find something with no objects? How does it know what type of object it is? Because I thought about that. I'm like, well, when I dump in an object, it doesn't have an object style.
Right. But if you go into find change, you go to the object property, and then you could say find every graphic frame in the document.
Okay.
And when you find that graphic frame, apply this object style to it. That'll kick in the alt text for it. Yeah.
Right. So you could globally find change to apply the object style to all of them. All right. Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah. So almost as good as what you were asking for.
Right. And of course, this is for a very specific use case where you as an organization have decided we're not going to write custom alt text anymore. Everything's going to be embedded because the alt text is consistent enough and we reuse enough objects in our ecosystem that makes sense, because it's not the right solution for everyone. I would not go into Photoshop or Bridge and write metadata just so that I can select that inside InDesign if it's not going to be reused over and over and over again.
Well, and let's not forget, Dax, about our alt text extractor script.
Yes, but that is not free. That is so my alt text automator and alt text extractor strips are ones that I've made for the and full disclosure, I didn't make nothing. I worked with somebody else who Luis, if you're listening to this, I know you're listening. I am not taking credit for your hard work, man. Luis, Keith is kind of Chad's go-to for scripting, and Luis is kind of my go-to for scripting. But yeah, I came up with this idea of being able to suck out all the alt text and into a database file that you could then edit and then write it back to the file in one shot. We offer that as part of one of our perks for taking one of our classes on InDesign, but we don't give it away free.
Yeah, you're right. That was my mistake, because I know we give it out for our classes, and I think that's what I was thinking when I brought that up. But
yep, no worries. All right, so free. I think that's kind of it for the free stuff that I know about. There might be some other stuff. If you're listening to this podcast and you know of another free script that you're using for accessibility, or free tool, just throw it in the chat where you see throw it in the message buddy where you see this post about our podcast, or send us an email. You can email either Chad at or Dax at chaxtc.com. CHAXTC for training and consulting.com.
Yep.
Speaking of which, Chad, we have not let anybody know, but for the new year, we have a new website.
We do.
We have a new website. It's chaxtc.com.
We have been rebranded, right?
we have. Yep. My brand mark was getting old and faded, and it was time for an upgrade, and I'm welcomed.
And we like it. Yeah. I think it's a lot more streamlined. I think it's easier to find stuff that you're looking for on our website, our classes, our training options. So check it out. Hopefully you guys
articles, podcasts, all sorts of good stuff on there. Yeah.
So as far as paid tools, right? Now keep in mind, guys, like the majority of these tools are Windows based, right?
Let's talk about the Mac tools first then.
Yeah. And I'll just point out that I'm working on a class that we're going to be delivering called PDF remediation for the Mac user. And it's intended for the Mac user who doesn't want to, jump through the hoops to be able to use Windows products. It'll leverage all Mac-based products. But so products for the Mac. Again, I'm an InDesign user. And one of the plugins that I love for InDesign is called Made to Tag. Made to Tag is available for Windows and Mac, right? It's one of the few products that we use that's available for both platforms. It is available for Windows and Mac. And it's a real game changer if you're an InDesign user. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. If anybody ever wants more information, feel free to email me or reach out and I can tell you more. The only PDF remediation product that is available Mac native is a product called PDFix. So it's basically PDF and then like a lowercase ix at the end. So PDFix is the product. It's available actually on Mac, Windows, and Linux, right? They actually develop for all three platforms. It's a great product. And on the Mac side, one of the real nice advantages of this product is that it has a built-in checker. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, PDFix utilizes Vera PDF. Okay. Slightly different engine, but really, again, they're striving for PDF UA compliance,
Sure.
or WCAG if you want WCAG. And it's a really great product. I'm using it on my machine. I really enjoy it. It's fast, it's robust, and it's definitely, if you're a Mac user, really worth checking out. Is that it, Dax?
For Mac? Yeah, kind of. Well, I think we can talk about the tools that, so carabiner elements, right? So if you decide that you want to listen to your document. So first of all, Apple VoiceOver is a free tool for accessibility, right? But Apple VoiceOver in a desktop environment inside Adobe Acrobat, in, that combination of tools is not a great user experience. And in fact, you taught me how to use Apple VoiceOver so that I could teach my class at Adobe Max, because it was all Mac.
We were teaching on all Macs.
Yeah. And I think that's a testament to how important I feel document testing with a screen reader is, because I was willing to go learn how to use this on a Mac. And I will tell you, it was not fun. The keyboard combinations that most times were 4 keys you had to hold down to get it to navigate. And even then, it didn't always behave correctly. So for those of you out there, there is a WebAIM study that basically says every year that Mac users in a desktop environment make up about 9 to 12%. The number fluctuates, of users. That most users who are on a desktop are using a PC. So can you test your document using Apple VoiceOver on a desktop? Sure. But do you have a really good, strong sense of whether or not the document's accessible? I don't. I think you could say it's mostly accessible, but
Agreed.
You're going to find barriers that you're going to run into going, man, why doesn't this work? It's part of Apple VoiceOver and you won't know, or you're going to miss something that's maybe something Apple VoiceOver doesn't really experience.
Like for my Adobe Max session, I did this little trick where I added actual text to a graphic. And VoiceOver didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
It never read it. And I was like, what's going on? I added alt text to it. It read fine. Yeah. And so I think that's one of those, what you were just describing, right? Like for the most part, VoiceOver, you can use it to do your testing, but you're going to run into areas where you're like, why isn't that working? And if you had tested on JAWS or NVDA, you'd see that it works just fine. Yep. But on VoiceOver, it is what it is. So, yeah. But so talking about what you were mentioning, Dax. So if you're a Mac user, right, and you're like, you know what? I'll bite the bullet and I want to be able to use these Windows products on my Mac, right? Yep. So my preferred tool, there's a couple of virtualization softwares out there, and virtualization is basically running Windows in a Mac environment, right? And so the tool that I prefer is Parallels. There's a number of virtualization softwares out there. I have found from experience that Parallels is one that works best for me. And you need to buy Parallels. Then you also need to buy a copy of Windows to install within the Parallels environment. And then, in addition, one of the problems on the Mac side is, both JAWS and NVDA utilizes the insert key as the modifier in which you do all of your keyboard shortcuts, right? So, what do I want to do? Like insert G, or not even that. When do we use insert, Dax? Like, what's a good example?
Well, insert Q for quitting, insert S for silence.
The insert down arrow. That's a good one. Insert down arrow is read from this point forward, right? And so the insert key doesn't exist on a Mac.
Yeah.
Right. So on a Mac keyboard, there's no insert key. And so you're like, oh, what do I do? How do I fix this? And so there's a free tool. It's called Carabiner Elements, Carabiner with a K, Carabiner Elements, that allows you to map one of your Mac keys to a Windows key. And we just did this, Dax. You called me when you were doing a class, and what I always do is I map my right option key to the insert key. And that becomes my insert key that I use when I'm testing with a screen reader. So that's the other, on the Mac side, that's another thing you might want to or have to do to be able to leverage the tools that are available to us.
Well, or you could also, which someone did in our class, one person had the Mac and they did the Carabiner Elements. The other person had a wireless Windows keyboard, and they just were able to connect to their PC, their Mac. So
I actually have one that I keep handy as well, right?
Yeah. Chad's holding up his keyboard for those listening to the podcast. So I guess that's a good segue into the paid tools, right? I will tell you the paid tools that we use most often are Made to Tag, CommonLook, CommonLook PDF, really. We don't use CommonLook Office. I don't have enough experience, but I will tell you the feedback I've got with CommonLook Office is it's a multi-step process that's a little less of a flowing experience. And so we use Access Word to export from Word, which is AXES Word. And so CommonLook PDF, Access Word, Access PDF, PDFix, right? PDFix is paid. And
Grackle
I'm trying to
Docs.
think of other. Grackle Docs is paid, which is interesting because Grackle, now that Google Docs allows you to export with tags, I wonder how that impacts. I mean, I know Grackle Docs does way more than just fix the Google PDF tagging situation.
Well, and I think I actually, that's my fault. I misspoke. I didn't mean to say Grackle Docs. I meant to say Grackle PDF.
Ah, gotcha.
So their
PDF.
Grackle PDF product is a PDF remediation tool that allows you to remediate PDF files. You're right. Grackle Docs was a plugin, or still is a plugin for Google Docs that would allow you to make Google Docs accessible. But Google has recently natively made the ability to export a tagged PDF. So I've not done a ton of testing on that. I don't know if you have.
It's okay. It's still not great. It's got its issues. It is definitely not with, everything's got its issues. Every tool we use has some quirk or bug. Sure. It is the nature of software. I mean, it just is what it is. So I would say, though, from a cost perspective, right, are the tools worth it? And I think that my answer is emphatically yes, if your time is valuable, because every one of those tools cuts my time down by exponential amounts. To edit a table using Access PDF, I can edit a complex table in 5 minutes that might take me an hour.
And I think you're being liberal when you say that, because I think really it's probably 2 to 3 minutes, I 100% agree with you. And we run into people, we talk with people all the time who are always like, oh, my company will never pay for that. They'll never, give me the money to do this. It's like, the only advice I could give you is put together an ROI.
And your
prove
time
it to them. Because even if your time, I'm going to be super conservative. Let's say your time is only worth $15 an hour.
Oh my gosh. I got it. 30 bucks, $30 an hour, but even so.
I'm being crazy conservative. After 100 hours, that's $1,500.
Yeah.
You could buy any product you want for that amount. I mean, I think CommonLook is the most expensive of the ones we listed. CommonLook is $11.99 a year, right? So $1,200 a year. It's the most, but it's arguably also the most powerful tool that we have, right?
Absolutely.
CommonLook is just a beast when it comes to pretty much anything you need to do in a PDF file.
So $100. So if it's $100 a month, for the software, and you divide $15 an hour, that's 6.5 hours. So if you save 6.5 hours a month, right, divided by 20 days in a month, right? 20 work days in a month. If you can save 30 minutes a day using that software, you're breaking even. And I will tell you, it saves you at least 3 or 4 hours easily every single week. Because I mean, I remediated a 65-page document using CommonLook the other day, and it took me 15 minutes. And I just could not imagine what it would have taken. And it's remediated to pass the pack checker. Like, it's to a really great standard. And it's so powerful. And Access PDF is another great tool. They have a subscription model now where you can just get a single month's worth of Access PDF, but it's $75. And I guess my thought is, if I'm a small person, if I'm a single business owner and I'm working on a project and I'm pulling my hair out with a document that has 50 tables in it that I know is going to take me just a crap ton of time, it's worth that $75 to just go get it and try it out and use it for that 1 month. But I mean,
it is, but at $75 a month, you're looking at $900 a year, right?
Yeah, but if you don't do accessibility every single month, it's not your bread and butter.
Fair enough.
I absolutely would want the tool, but I wouldn't want to wouldn't want to drop $700 or $800 at a shot to buy the tool. So, so I would say, people always ask us, what's the one tool between CommonLook, Access PDF, and PDFix? And my answer is, it all depends on the content. Because if I'm remediating complex tables all day because I work at a financial institution or something that deals with numbers like that, CommonLook does okay. Their table editor is good and quick, but not the same level as Access PDF. On the flip side, if I am moving tags around, I'm having to write alt text, I'm having to assign lists and tag things manually. Hands down, CommonLook is the fastest tool out there once you start learning all the shortcut keys and the power of being able to do conditional search. I did a conditional search, Chad, the other day. I searched for a figure because I did have a nested situation, right? Mm-hmm. Where I had a paragraph inside a paragraph. And so I was able to search for, in this case, it was a figure, all figures that have children that are P tags. And then I could actually search and say, and those have P tags as well. And so I could literally dive into this multi-steps criteria search and just edit those tags in this document. It was great. So yeah, I mean, it's every tool has its use, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Access PDF. What better tool out there to edit the font map, right?
Oh, when you have Unicode mapping errors, there's nothing better than Access PDF because it's just awesome. You could bring up a window of every font in your document, and any fonts that have a Unicode mapping problem, it'll be highlighted in red.
However, except for ligatures. Ligatures won't be highlighted in red. So if you have FI as a ligature and F exists as the character, but not FI, and it's missing the I, it won't highlight in red, but you can easily see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you could fix it. Like you can look at what the error is and it'll say, oh, this is a U, but for whatever reason, the program doesn't know that it should map to a U. And so you just click in there, you type a U and you're done. Right. Yes. I mean, it's really, really, really a powerful tool for things like that. Yeah.
And until you come across something like Chinese and then you're trying to map a Unicode character in Chinese, that's really hard. I leave that to other people. Yeah. Not me.
I'm the wrong guy.
So, let's do a recap on what we've talked about.
Yeah.
And see if we missed anything.
So we talked about Access PDF. We talked about Access Word.
Yep.
We talked about Grackle PDF.
Yep.
We talked about CommonLook. We talked about PDFix.
So another paid tool from a content creation standpoint is Venngage. So if you're already on a platform and you're designing in a certain set of tools, okay. But if you're using Canva or you have an online design system that maybe is something else, Adobe Express, something like that, Venngage, their platform is just amazing for creating accessible PDFs straight out of the software. So we would be remiss if we didn't at least talk about them. Even though they're not a plugin, they're an actual tool.
And especially if you're like a Canva user, right? Because listen, creating PDFs from Canva, not a great experience right now, right? So if you're looking to be able to create accessible content, Venngage is a really good solution. And I'll mention one more, which is called Prep by Continual Engine.
Oh yeah, Prep, sure.
And the reason I want to bring that one up is because it's the only one that is an online product. It's completely web-based, right? And I think that's advantageous for certain clients. We run into this all the time, Dax, where clients are not allowed to install certain software on their,
right,
because they got to get it through IT and IT doesn't allow it or whatever. When it's online, it kind of takes that out of the equation. So Prep is also a legitimate product that's definitely worth taking a look at. Very robust tool as well.
Well, and Continual Engine is really leveraging AI right now. And some of their alt text and math. The alt text they have for math is great, actually. They showed us a demo of how they were able to use AI to write the alt text for mathematical functions, and I believe the MathML as well. So really good stuff. I'm not a big fan of the interface that they have for their tags tree, but that's a really small thing compared to some of the powerful things that it can do. And again, we haven't used it very much at all. So I think that we probably should go back and take another look.
One other thing I want to point out, Dax, is that not all of those products actually allow you to tag content.
Okay.
So like PDFix, it can only work with existing tags in the document.
Oh, interesting.
If you've got an element that's not tagged, I can't tag it with Access PDF.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And the same thing currently with Grackle PDF. Now, they've told me they're working on that, right? But as of now, Grackle PDF cannot tag content, right?
Gotcha.
Now, CommonLook can.
Yes.
And so can PDFix.
Yeah.
And so can Prep.
Yeah.
So that's again, people ask us all the time, which product should I use? It's like, we got to have a bigger conversation before I can make a recommendation. Because depending on what you're trying to do or what you need to do, that's going to dictate, which direction we go. So it's hard to give you a black and white answer on that because there's so many variables involved.
Well, and I will tell you the one tool that you probably already have is Acrobat.
Mm-hmm.
Acrobat is, you're already, Acrobat, of course you have to have Acrobat Pro, but AutoTag has done a phenomenal job as of recent. And I will tell you, I have it on, saw it in a video, that if you have a document that's primarily fairly simple, but you've got lots of tables that repeat across pages, even if the document has tags, I would auto tag, retag the document using auto tag, because auto tag will remove those repeat headers across pages. So if your content's fairly simple and it's going to do really well with tagging, heading structure and paragraphs and things like that, but you've got all these tables that you've got to go in and remove that repeat header row on every page, auto tag it, because auto tag will remove that repeat header row now on its own. And that's a great quick fix.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, because auto tag of old was a bit of the pits, right? You know what I mean? It really did kind of a junk job, but the more recent rendition of that has definitely improved, right? And that's a good point, Dax. You can tag content using Acrobat, right? Yeah. I mean, that's always been my fallback. Like, worst case, I can always go into Acrobat and tag my content manually using the reading order tool. But yeah, so hopefully that's helpful, guys, right? I know we covered a lot of information here, a lot of products, but if you're ever in question, if you're ever like, oh, should I spend the money on a third-party tool? Our answer is pretty much yes, right? Because it's going to pay for itself in in no time flat.
The biggest way that you can defend the I need this tool is to start tracking your time. Set a timer. There's lots of web-based tools that you can do to keep track of how long it's taking you to tag a table, to tag a document, to do these things, because honestly, you're going to find you're spending way more time than you think doing these tedious tasks.
Well, and I promise you that your C-suite executives love ROIs. They absolutely love them, right? And if you put one together and you build it out and you kind of show what the ROI is going to be on that product, your likelihood of being able to get it is going to increase. You know, again, I don't work for your company. I'm not, you know, but I could guarantee you it's definitely going to help.
Well, and I will tell you this, you're paying for it, whether you want to or not. Your time, if you spend 10 hours a week doing accessibility, right? That's 300 hours, 30 hours or 40 hours a month, right? 10 hours a week, 40 hours a month, 480 hours a year times your salary. That is well more than $1,200 a year. So just know that whether you're actually giving it to a third-party software company or you're just costing it to your company, either way, the money is going out, and it'd be much better for you to be more productive than it is just to keep spending that money.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully you found that useful. Hopefully you took away some nuggets from this. I know Dax and I are always thrilled to be able to talk about the products that we use day in and day out. And this was a lot of fun. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in today. My name is Chad Chelius.
And my name is Dax Castro, where every other week we unravel accessibility for you.
Thanks, guys.